Okay, this will be the third lesson in this video series. As you can see, I took some time off camera to draw in the major parts of what I want to do. And I've done it in black ink so that you can see where the stick is going to be, where the boots are going to be, where all the major gross anatomy, as you say, is going to be. The next thing we have to do is then go and determine where the depth of certain parts of the relief carving are. And that's one of the hardest things to do on a relief carving. Because remember, we're not carving the whole 2-inch piece. We've got 1 inch. And in that 1 inch, in that half, we've got to show the things that we need to show. Now, in reality, you could get rid of that hiking stick and just make him look like he's got both hands in his jacket pocket. But I think for the purposes of what you're doing, this is a much better way to do that if you show that. And so somewhere along the way we'll show that hand sticking out. But in reality, it would be on the other side of this, and we wouldn't see that in this first half. But we're going to do that. So the first thing that I do is to establish this depth right here, because I know this is the lowest part. This is a part that really shouldn't be there, but it is. So we've got to show that really as the lowest part. And I overdraw my drawings. I always overdraw. So I really want this stick to be thinner than this. It's really going to come in somewhere like this. But if I cut it that thin right now, it may be too weak and I may have to make adjustments down the road. So I'm only going to go back to this line, the first part. This is going to be the highest point, because in this carving, if you're looking at somebody from straight on and they're standing there at you, yeah, you could make the argument that this bedroll is out farther from the body, but we're going to establish this elbow as the farthest point out. So everything else is going to plunge away from that. Everything else is going to be deeper than that point right there. So I'm going to leave that point there as a reminder to myself. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all this wood here that I don't need. So I'm going to arbitrarily just draw a line here, and I'm going to keep it close to the parts. I'm going to overdraw, and I'm going to make a thick line, which tells me all of this wood here and here is going to go away. So hopefully you can see that with my pencil marks, but all of that is going to go away. That's the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to establish the deepest depth. And so that'll take us, I got a frog in my throat today for some reason. That'll take us through the first part of this carving. So again, I'm going to put on my glove. I'm going to put on my finger protector, because I don't know about you, but I don't want to embarrass myself in front of everyone here and really cut myself. I have Band-Aids laying around. I have first aid. I don't hardly ever use them, but occasionally you have need to do that. And I really don't want to do that today. Tonight we have our carving night, so I'm trying to get some videos done while I have some time today. And I really don't want to hobble into carving night with a Band-Aid on my hand and someone asking, what happened to you? And you don't have to tell them exactly how stupid you were. I'm going to use the V-tool. The V-tool is probably the second most important tool that I use in carving. Having said that, I use a lot of knives, but I'm going to use the V-tool because once I've drawn the line, it's still only 2D. It's still only two-dimensional. I got the front and I've got the side. Once I start carving, then I can start to see the 3D. A lot of people say they have a hard time seeing the 3D, and I get that. Anyway, once I do this, I'm going to take that V-tool, and that's what I'm going to use to outline all of my lines. I want to make sure that I'm not going to go too deep, because artistically it looks right. It looks, and I've done a few of these as I showed you earlier. Artistically, I've done this, and I know that it looks right. But this is a piece of wood that sometimes doesn't tell me what's inside. And so if I go deep inside a piece of wood and there's a little knot on the inside and wood's going to split off, I have to know how to fix that. And that's the mark of a good carver, is being able to fix your mistakes. Anyway, I've drawn these lines. I'm going to stay just to the outside or right on that line. And I'm going to just make some marks with my V-tool. And like I say, I've done several of these. So I may be a little bit bolder than you are doing this the first time. But I just want to use the V-tool to outline where my cuts are going to be. And I'm going to do that in all of these major lines for the stick that I've drawn in. So what I want to do is just make sure that where I am works. And if it doesn't, I can make adjustments. But you hate that when you're trying to do something and all of a sudden your hand flies off somewhere. Happens to the best of us and it happens to the worst of us sometimes. All right, so I've made that cut there and there, here and here. I'll eventually make that cut across. We're not going to worry about that just yet. And I'm also going to mark it right here where the hand is going to be. Again, know that that hand is only going to go so deep. But what I'm going to do is remove all of that all the way down between here. So all of this and all of this and all of this and all of this is going to come back on. Remember to keep your knife, your pencil handy, because you're going to want that when you go to redraw your lines. Once you cut a line off, unless you're absolutely perfectly sure where it is, draw it back on. Especially when you're doing figure carving, because a lot of times figure carving can be one of those things where you're just not sure, unless you have a lot of experience, exactly where that goes if you're just freehanding it. Imagine if you were trying to freehand a drawing of a person that you've never drawn before, and it's hard to get where you need to go. So my suggestion to you is draw those lines back on until you absolutely know where you're going and what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And if you've not done this before, it's kind of hard. All right, I've made that knife stop cut with my knife, and now I'm just going to use my fishtail gouge. This is probably number 3rd most important tool in my bag. Having said that, I carve very little time with my V-tool and most of the time with my knife, but those aren't the most important ones. The V-tool and this fishtail gouge are important in terms of knowing exactly where I'm going to go. So I'm going to remove this wood. Whatever wood removal technique you use and whatever tool you use, I encourage you to find the best way to do it, because I'm not here to tell you how to do it. I'm here to tell you how I do it. Big difference. The big difference is I carve differently than you do. And there's nothing wrong with us carving differently. I have a lot of friends who carve way differently than I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just carve my way and it works for me. I went to class with Harley Refsall and took a class from him. He's the guru of flat plane carving, and the way he carves is very interesting to watch. You know, those people that carve and they use their thumb for pushing. I only have half a thumb on my left hand, so it makes it really difficult for me to be able to use that, because that thumb is so much shorter, everything has to choke up, and then I'm in the way of that knife. So for me, I didn't learn that way, and I've tried to do it that way, and it's not that easy. And so I'm going to stick with what works for me. I'm not telling you not to experiment. I'm not telling you not to do it a different way. I'm simply telling you, hey, this is the way I do it. This is the way it works. And as long as it works for me, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to grab my knife here and just remove some of this wood. We're just taking a few minutes to just get that down to depth. I know that I'm probably going to go deeper, as I said earlier. I'm going to go deeper than the line that I drew. But right now, I just want some of that wood off so that I know how deep I'm going to go and how much deeper I have to go after that. If I get excited and all of a sudden drop my knife and start yelling, it's the time of the year and the time of the decade when the World Cup is playing, and so I've got that playing in the background with no sound on it. And I keep watching the little bit of the game that's playing, and so it's one of those things where the whole world is watching, and I'm part of that whole world. I watch as much as I can. Not as much as I want, but as much as I can. Anyway, probably going to be boring for you to sit here and watch me, so feel free to fast forward, pause, whatever you need to do. But all I'm doing is just getting this thing down to depth. I'm removing the lowest depth of the wood that I know is going to be taken off. There's no finesse to it. It is pure just power, just taking off wood. And again, whatever wood removal technique you use, I know some of you will probably do it power, and there's nothing wrong with that. I got no problem with power carving. I do a little bit of power carving, although not as much as some of my other friends, and it may come a day when I do a whole lot more because of the arthritis or hands or whatever problems that we develop as we get older. But I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm going to continue using the knife and the tools as long as I can because I really enjoy that. I remember when I was a kid, we would go visit my dad's family in Alabama, and where my dad's mom and dad had a place, Granny and Papa, their next door neighbor was Papa's brother Otis. And Otis ran a little store there at the corner of the highway there, way out in the country on Sand Mountain, Alabama. Anyway, Uncle Otis had this little store, and I used to love going in there because he always gave me an orange popsicle when I went in. Middle of winter, middle of summer, it didn't matter, he'd give me a popsicle. Anyway, southern town, there was always fellas sitting around the pot-bellied stove playing dominoes or whittling. And I really enjoyed watching that, and I thought that'd be cool to do one day. And when I got older, I tried a little bit with a pocket knife, and if you've ever done that with a pocket knife and no experience or training, you know how hard that can be to do that. But I enjoyed it, and when I got time to finally learn how, like I say, I did a lot of wood carving with Boy Scouts, and sometimes I just made sharp sticks because it's fun to whittle a little bit. Sometimes I made something that made sense. But anyway, ever since then, I've always enjoyed it. I still enjoy it, probably always will. Whether I can do it or not, I'll always enjoy looking at carving and seeing what goes on. All right, rather than listen to me ramble on and on, I'll take a few minutes to get that down to depth. You can see still how much I have left to do. I'm going to take that out. You don't need to sit here and listen to me ramble on about my stories and all the things that I do. And we'll pause here with 12 minutes and pick this up on video lesson number 4. In the meantime, your homework is to get that down to depth. Get that area down there that you want out of there in that time, and including that hand. So take some time off camera to do that, and we'll see you on video number 4, is it? I think so. See you on video number 4. Talk to you later.